Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I truly appreciate it. This is Rob with Instinct Bassin, and in today's video we're going to go over 3 things to keep in mind when you go to network your Echomap or Ultra units. So stay tuned. I think we'll get some good, useful info out of it. Real quick before we get started, be sure to check out the GPSstore.com. They are our partner for the year. They have some great deals on marine electronics. Father's Day is just around the corner, so it's a great time to purchase those. Be sure to check them out. It'll definitely help out the channel. I'll truly appreciate it. I'll leave a link down below. Again, that's the GPSstore.com. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to keep in mind is naturally how many units you're going to be networking together. Now, the newer UHD 2 units are going to wirelessly network together, so you're not going to have to think about it too much. I have heard a couple of issues with that. For instance, when you turn one unit off, the other one turns off, that type of thing. I don't own those units, so I can't verify that, but that's just something to keep in mind if you're looking at buying those units. Also keep in mind the Echomap Ultra units have 2 network ports, whereas the plain Echomap, that is the 9373, 9474, those units will only have 1 network port. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when you're going to network these units together. And then also keep in mind that Livescope is going to take up one of those network ports if you happen to have Livescope, because it has to go into that network or Panoptix port is what it's actually labeled as. And then finally, one other item to consider is depending on how many units you have, you may or may not need a network box. Typically anything over 3 units is going to require a network box, and potentially 2 units with the Livescope will also require a network box. So Garmin sells a network box, which I currently use, and I currently like it a lot. I'll leave a link down below from the GPSstore.com, but it's just one option that's available. There are people who have built their own. Again, I can't speak to those whether they work or not, but this one does work great. But that's certainly one thing to keep in mind as well. All right, and then the second thing to keep in mind is just going to be how far away your units are from each other. For instance, if you have 2 units that are close by like that, then you can get by with a shorter network cable, such as I think 6 feet is the smallest network cable that Garmin sells anyway. But obviously if you have 2 units at the bow, 1 at the console, and that type of stuff, then you're going to need a longer network cable. So just keep the distance of the network cable in mind when you go to network your units together. Also keep in mind where your Livescope black box is going to be mounted, because that will also dictate how long of a network cable you're going to need. And then when it comes to the network cable, I recommend getting the shortest network cable that'll get the job done. Now again, I believe Garmin's shortest network cable is going to be 6 feet. That's typically not going to be long enough to go from the console to the bow. So you'd want to get the next size up to do that. You just want to try to avoid having a bunch of coiled network cable up, laying around in the boat if you can avoid it. And that brings on the third thing, which is going to be cable management. And so when it comes to cable management, you got to realize, where is that excess cable going to go? Where are you going to put it at? Try not to coil it over any power wires or anything like that, because that could cause interference. And keep in mind that the cable attachments on those Garmin network cables can be removed in order to get them through holes that you've drilled out or anything like that. And then also consider running the cable like I do. I have the network cable ran up the inside of the rod locker and then pinned up in there. And so that way it's just out of the way, and it's not going to be getting in the way when you try to put rods in the rod locker or anything like that. But just keep in mind where you're going to run your cables, and keep in mind that cable management. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. Thanks so much for tuning in. The things we talked about are ways to network your Garmin fish finders together. And the things to keep in mind are how many units you have, or how many network ports you have, how far away those units are, and then what you're going to do with the cables once you hook those units up. Be sure to check out the GPSstore.com. They've got some great deals on marine electronics, especially now that Father's Day is coming along. If you've already got a Garmin 106 SV or 93 SV, be sure to check out these videos that I'll leave linked right here. Again, this is Rob with Instinct Bassin. Thanks so much for tuning in. Trust your gut, and I'll see you on the water.